Welcome back to another episode of Yelena Talks. This is now my 4th episode, and today I have a special, beautiful guest. Her name is Christina Kovalevich. She is a social media manager, a content creator, TV hostess, ghostwriter, and author, first runner-up at Miss Washington, and she is a publicist. And even better, top of the list, she is now my social media manager for my company. So I'm so excited to have you with us, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. I can't believe I finally get to record my first podcast with you.
Wonderful. So we talk about a lot of stuff together. You have a psychology degree, is that correct?
I do. I have a psychology bachelor's in psychology. But let me tell you what you know, girl. The world needs to hear.
Okay. Well, I love having like a duo conversation with someone, and you are someone who understands this realm well, and not only the psychology part, but you're an entrepreneur. You have business experience and you've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. So we are going to be talking about a topic that I think you've seen in your personal, professional life, your business, other people's businesses. So without any further delay, let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
And our topic for today, it goes off of the schema that I've been talking about all week, and it is the self-sacrifice schema, right? Plainly put, this is when people overgive. I'm not saying give, it's almost to a fault, to an area where it makes a person disbalanced. They become so other directed, like focused on other people. We call it other directedness, where you lose a sense of self, and it's really hard to honor and love yourself the way God created you to be when you're overextending and doing things to people so much that if it's really unhealthy, it falls into the concept of codependency, because you are you're picking up the slack for other people. You're now enabling people to do less than, if I could say it. So it actually backfires on you. So we're gonna jump really into this, and obviously we'll see how the conversation flows, but I want to apply it to areas I've seen it in my life, in people I've worked with, business, entrepreneurs. Let me tell you, that is one top schema that they struggle with, which I think is kind of crazy because there's only so much they can do. But I don't know. My experience is these are people that do so much, and they're used to, for their own reasons growing up, that they kind of overdo it. This is why it's important to hire a team. Guys, I wanted to say that me practicing on my own schema is hiring help, including Christina. It's because I can't do it all.
Well, this is a very timely topic because I think, let's be real, with COVID-19 pandemic being behind us, a lot of people got laid off. They have lost their jobs. They needed to pivot and find a new direction. And this applies to both of us and really to everybody in this nation. We all needed to alter our lifestyles. And with that being said, I think there's been an uprise of entrepreneurs. There's been a lot of people that have been finding what they love, what they don't love, what they want to do, what they don't want to do. They're starting to step out of their comfort zone, because that's what that entire era with the pandemic has forced us to do, is to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And as people step out more, they're starting to reflect and learn about themselves. A lot of personal development happens on the path of entrepreneurship.
That's so true.
And we're really not here to put down anybody. We're here to shine the light.
Absolutely.
And to give value and direction. Because maybe somebody right now is in the middle of opening up their own restaurant. Or maybe they are being a stay-at-home mom, or going back into the career force, and they're starting to stumble upon this fancy word schema, which really is just something internally that needs to be noticed, addressed, and we need to do some alterations. That's really all what it is. So I think every single person in and outside of entrepreneurship has been in that overly giving phase at least once in their lifetime. But since you specialize in talking to female entrepreneurs, we are especially prone to this because we love to give, right?
Yeah.
You have given me so much. I've had the best stay here over this weekend with you, and we've been doing so much work and planning. But at the same time, I gotta admit, like, there comes a moment where we sabotage ourselves when we
That's true.
are
That's true.
constantly giving and we can't allow somebody else to give to us so we can receive.
Wow. You know, it's impossible to talk about this one schema, the concept of self sacrifice or overgiving, without connecting to the other schemas. I mean, it's like, you know, the Bible talks about like there's a strong man and then there's like 7 demons that come. I mean, it really is a gang.
True.
It's really hard to isolate because I'm thinking of, yes, I will speak to the my population of female entrepreneurs, but you know, and we're created to give and we can do so much. But when we think of culture, we think of religion, we think of
Environment.
and I mean there's so many different factors that then well, they make us the way that we are, and then it's like, okay, I could see why it's hard to trust other people to take over. Like, I mean, even hiring you, like you're a great person, but I have to like, there's a level of surrender and almost like higher level of faith where it's like, God, you gave me a brain. I'm going to be able to discern logically and with my spirit, you know, is she or anyone else I hire doing their work? Is this a contract issue that I need to change? Can I trust? I mean, especially with people working remotely, right? Are they doing their stuff or what am I paying for? Like, of course we can get finicky and being like, no, I can do this better, or I'm afraid if I give this up, you know, but we, you know, it goes back to that topic I talked about last week. It goes back to fear.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do what I need to do my part in this life, in my family, in my business, whatever specific, you know, parameters I need to operate in, and trust that God will unite me with people and I can use discernment to hire or include people in my life that do their part. And I believe when we are in balance, the natural byproduct, it's things like joy and peace and relief, right? Like you've seen my frustrations with technology. Like there is no point of me trying to do every tech piece by myself. There comes a point where I'm like, I can't do it. I can't help everyone else. I need help.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes into that concept of like, what about me? I need some help. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. So I understand my conversation is slightly pivoting. So I want to go back. This isn't about, we're not going to talk as much about fear. We're not going to talk about as much as me doing everything myself. This is more like over giving specifically. So I'm going to get specific. I'm going to jump in. Women, you said we give. The Bible talks about man giving actually, and we multiply. So we're the ones that
Need to receive.
we overdo it. Like we are multiplying, but sometimes we go so overboard. It's overbearing. And the one thing, what makes this a maladaptive schema, so this is not helpful in adjusting and integrating into life, is you're so overdoing it at the expense of your own peace and joy, relaxation, healthy self-esteem, pleasure. And when we overhelp someone, maybe time, with your time, your finances, deep inside, what starts to happen almost always, we start to have some anger and resentment start to build up. And that sounds like a train crash waiting to happen because it will backfire. And then we start to expect things from people, or we're unhappy and pouty. But let's go back. Entrepreneurs. Christina, where do you, maybe some examples come to your mind? You've had experiences or you've seen other people that they gave. And on the outside, it looked good. Maybe it even looked quote unquote Christian. But actually, this was not coming from a healthy spot.
Oh, this is so good. I could definitely give a lot of examples. I'm going to try to keep this short because of time, right? We don't have all day. But I come from a bigger family, right? I have siblings. I come from a cultural background, right? So a lot of or a portion of our audience are people of the Slavic background. And we are definitely encouraged to give, and we need to give. And on top of that, we have immigrated to the beautiful United States of America. So I look back in my life and I've realized that there were moments where you gave because you had to. There was no other choice. You needed to give in helping your parents, translate, right? You come to this new country, you go to school, we got to make bills, we got to get the ground running, and there's all these letters coming in, and you from a young age are translating these newsletters that are coming in the mail to your parents. And then that rolls into them trying to run their entrepreneurship businesses, and you're helping them there. And then you start running your own thing and you're giving there. And on top of that, you have a day job because you still got to make bills, and you're giving yourself there. So I'm painting a picture. You're constantly giving. Oh, and then you have siblings. So you're developing these relationships, and you got to give your time. You got to be a good sister. You got to listen. You got to help them, with, just building. And so in the scheme of things, you're giving maybe like 95% of the day. And this, I'm just painting a picture of areas where I have personally given. And I know I've talked to a lot of people that this is areas that they have had to give. And there comes a moment where, speaking for myself, I was mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm done. I'm throwing the towel in. Forget this. This is crazy.
I'm done. Shred everything.
You just become very dramatic. You become emotional.
You start to break.
Absolutely.
You collapse.
You just collapse. And it costed me my health in my earlier 20s.
Oh, yeah.
Working 40 to 50 hour weeks, being present in so many different relationships. Then running not even hobbies. It's just like giving back in church and ministry. And having one evening where I have a couple hours to myself was a luxury. And even then, that was the evening when you run errands. And so by the time you hit like 25, I'm done. I hit midlife crisis and I'm only 25. And so I know a lot of people in entrepreneurship, like we need to learn to find balance. We need to learn to set boundaries. I had to learn to say no. And at one moment I had to close every single door and almost start from scratch because my brain no longer knew what was too much. Was I giving? Like I had no compass. I did not know what was north, what was south, what was east, what was west. Everything was just jumbled in a blur. And I have to be real. Like I think only in this last year, I have finally found my North Star.
What does that mean for you?
Kind of like, what direction do I go? Like, I had to ask myself, like, what are my goals?
Wait a second, who am I? In the midst of all these things I'm doing, but what about me?
Exactly. Because sometimes our identity, it gets caught up in the work. It gets caught up in the giving.
The tasks.
And when we stop giving, our brain goes into like a fight or flight system thing, and you talk about that too in some of your posts and working one-on-one with you. And you just don't know. And so for me, I just had to be like, who am I?
Yeah.
Outside of giving, okay, I had to stop giving and be like, okay, this is who Christina is. And in all of that, I'm going to jump ahead. I knew I was on the right track when I found myself being happier, joyful.
Yeah.
When I could laugh.
Oh, yeah.
When I walked in and people were like, oh, KK's here. I was like, oh my gosh, Christina has an identity and people know her for who she is. And before I was in the shadows.
Like what makes you unique.
Exactly. Yeah. I found myself that I actually found this calm because I was constantly in a storm. I was constantly running, which then I turned into a survival. Just surviving. Now I get to thrive. I'm like, oh, what kind of businesses do I want to build? Oh, where do I want to give? What kind of people do I want to pour in? Oh, what do I love to do? Like, what is me time? And I found that I was definitely, like I said, on the right thing when I was just a better person. I showed up. I know what it is. More feminine. Because I think when you're giving, you're constantly in this very rough, masculine mode. It even comes off in this energy you produce, in your tone of voice, in the volume of your voice. And you just don't know better when you're in the overly giving state.
It's like we start, I think for girls at least, right? When we start to feel exhausted and rushed and like there's this like exhausted pressure of go and you're not showing up fully, You're not beautiful. I know we have our days, but you're talking about a couple of things, and my mind is also kind of like thinking, and I want to clarify a couple of things for our, viewers and listeners. I think what you're saying is when we're so doing for things for people, first of all, why? Why? Why do you need to go above 100,000, 10%? Where's that coming from? And the problem is what you said. All of a sudden, we don't have stuff to do, and we feel like our life is over and we're collapsing because our identity is so tied into doing for others, but to fill some kind of deeper mode, that we can't, especially as women, be in a state of rest. And the interesting thing, the Bible says, be still, right? Rest and know I'm God. And only when we are in real rest, we can receive revelation from God. And you're right, we still have, the ability to do things for people, but it's like your uniqueness can only show when you're operating in the parameters, or if I could say boundaries, of who you are. And how do we know when we're overdoing? Like legit overdoing this is a pattern. Like let's say me in technology. Or no, let me do a better example. Let's say I'm helping. Okay, fine. Let's say I'm over helping with maybe my siblings, the people I've hired. It's like, is this my role? Is it like, fine, like entrepreneur, is this my contract? Or am I overdoing and over helping and with my time and my money and my energy, and we're going in circles and we're not really going anywhere, and I'm exhausted and I'm getting irritated and unhappy. So, and coming back, like here's where you have to be really bold to be healthy, because sometimes coming from like a Christian background where it's like, oh, Christ-like, I don't know why, we just kind of sometimes, without saying it like this, we assume, or how we speak, we almost paint Christ to be like some kind of pushover and people pleaser.
So well said.
That's not who he was. I mean, he knew who he was, what to do. I mean, he said some pretty clear-cut, bold things that irritated people. And here's the thing, the Bible never says he was running around chasing people, giving them, shoving miracles into their life. He actually was able to be very present. And if I recollect correctly, people who are ready came to him, and then he gave. And so I just think of this concept of, like fine, let's say us women, sometimes when we're not over giving, society can say you're selfish. But here's the thing, Christina, think about if Jesus is in you and you are like Jesus. When people come to you and then you give with what you have, that is much more of like a balanced blessing than you chasing everyone, proving, look what I could do with social media, look what I could do with my managing skills. And like that just puts you in such an almost unattractive way when you're like begging, or you're just shoving your help on people, versus this is who I am. And out of that confidence and abundance, you give. And the Bible even says, all who are weary, come. There's this like flow when you're grounded and present, which I think takes a lot of faith to be like, Lord, I'm enough, I'm good, I'm loved through you, I'm whole, I'm healed. Let me do what I need to do in that creative blueprint, and then the rest will come. And stuff happens. Sometimes we overgive, sometimes it's a season. Like, I'm sorry, if you're building a business, we are in exponential growth mode. We're putting so much into it. But even then, like, I'll speak for myself, and I'll give a couple quick examples. There comes a point where it's like, I need team. I need help. I can't do everything by myself. And here's another example with money, because it's impossible to talk about business if there is no money. Even nonprofits have to have some kind of form of funds. I'm thinking of like back in the day. Here's how overgiving showed up in my life. Sure, I'll provide all these extra services, even though I had to go to school and spend a lot of time and money on my degrees and everything. But here, let me help you everything for free. Or even when I was charging, somehow it still feels so bad and succumb to everyone's sob story, which everyone has a story. But then all of a sudden, it's like, I'm not getting paid for anything. In fact, I'm like going in debt. And whose fault is that? Because I'm not charging even what's realistically feasible to uphold a business. But here's the cool part. Ever since I now have a full team behind me, Someone was trying to barter some services with me that I was going to produce, and they were asking to pay me less. And I'm thinking, the old Yelena, maybe. But now that I'm recognizing, hey, this is logistically how much this service costs. And by the way, I have a whole team to pay. No longer can I just cheat myself, because now I have a whole team that I'm trying to represent and honor and respect their value and whatever price I'm paying. So by default, I have to do the same to myself.
I have so much to say about this, but I think we're going to roll over into a second podcast. I have to say to all the entrepreneurs listening, you will always charge people what you believe you are worth. So when your worth is in your work and you don't know what you are worth as a person,
Yeah.
you're already hitting a pretty big red zone. Secondly, we need to attract. Yelena, you attract. You're not coming around like, guys, I have these services. Everybody, you can benefit from what I can give you. You create from a place of rest and freedom and peace. And you just share with the world what you know, what you've experienced. You're mixing your counseling background now with your coaching, and you are presenting yourself as a very, very certified, experienced, worthy to be paid for coach, because your background and your knowledge, the brain power that you have, it speaks for itself. And so I'm even noticing it's very easy to detect, being somebody who has been social media savvy, right? In the last couple of years, I'm really stepping into the zone, who's very desperate and who's very rushing. And you could just even tell the way people work and function and think.
It's messy.
It's so chaotic just by the way they show up on their social media lives, reels, videos, captions, even photos. We've talked about it this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I could really feel out a person just by looking at the way they're standing, posing, and what they're doing in the photo. And so these are just like, we're scratching the surface, right? The tip of the iceberg, with how powerful it is to know who you are, to know your boundaries, and to show up to this world from a place of, I am worthy. Yeah. This is how much I know I can give, and you cannot, like you said, just push over me.
And there's one little topic I wanted to add that is very relevant to a very a dear group of entrepreneur girls. You do so much for other people. You're helping your family, your siblings, especially if your business is making money, then it's almost sometimes a trap, because when you start to help so many other people, whether it's your community, your tithing, your family, you got to go. You help so many people, but what about your own life, your own free time? And what I'm really trying to get at is, what about you still having the presence and energy to show up and do some things like date? Are you this exhausted, wiped out version that's like, okay, I don't have time for this, even if you do? What kind of presence and energy do you have left to show up to something that I think most girls deep in their heart desire? A mate who loves them, who is drawn to their presence. But when we have girls that overgive, first of all, what do they have left? And second of all, if you want a healthy partner, you don't want to overgive, because you will attract a codependent, narcissistic, selfish type of individual. So here's me circling back to what I said in the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever's listening, the trap of overgiving, right? Some people might say it's selfish if you're not giving, but I'm saying overgiving, by default, this is how laws and principles work in the spiritual and psychological. If you overdo it, you will attract someone on the opposite side. You will not attract someone who's balanced. If you are unhealthy, you will attract an unhealthy business partner, mate, friend, right? The list goes on. And like I said before, that will breed anger and resentment. And of course, that's going to tie into your own spiritual problems and health problems, and the list goes on, right? So, of course, we can talk about this topic in so many different ways, and we'll continue to find ways to continue to educate our girls and encourage them to be balanced, for not just for their own sake, but to Like, we need a world, a community, churches, families that are healthy. And the only way we can do that is if you start with yourself and find that balance. Who am I, and what are appropriate boundaries in appropriate, like, contexts?
Yelena, we're coming to an end, so I want to take a moment to honor you for who you are. You've taken a lot of time to dive into yourself and do some self-reflection, deep work. So today you can show up to the rest of the world with everything it is that you've experienced, you've known. And I love how you are tying spiritual principles with the brain, because many times we overlook the brain and our reality is very disconnected from, truly where we're meant to be, where we could be and where we should be. And so thank you for taking a leap of faith and stepping out as an entrepreneur and starting your own business so that you can help not dozens, not hundreds, not just thousands, but I'm believing for millions of women all over the nation and the world one day with everything it is that you carry within. And I know you're going to set so many people free, and we're going to all find what it looks like to have a healthy balance.
Yes.
And to give in appropriate measures and still be able to show up in our best version of ourselves.
Absolutely. My goal is not to produce workaholics. My goal is, I think of Proverbs 31. That was a woman, who, believe it or not, it's like she had it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say this because this is a very special topic. She had, it sounds like, a very abundant business life and family and marriage life.
She had a balance.
But I'm sure there was balance, okay? So, of course, we'll talk more. We're just wrapping up this week with the self-sacrifice schema, areas where this absolutely, definitely shows up in my entrepreneurs and what we can do. And we'll continue to break down how we can clean up these areas, of course, with future courses and projects and group coaching opportunities. We're so excited to continue to build our summer plans because that's what we are really building right now, strategizing. And we're just having reoccurring topics and women who are actually writing me and talking about the same thing. And I'm just thinking, I need to make this stuff more public. And so that's why I have stuff like podcasts and courses people can sign up, because it doesn't matter what corner of the world you're working or you're talking to with, women, we have the same core. We have very similar desires. And especially if I'm talking to my entrepreneurs, okay, most of my women, at least the population I work with, want to have a balance between business and love. So,
I love it.
so that, I don't know, I have a heart for that, and I want to speak to that specific set of women.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina. I am looking forwards to working with you professionally, but even hearing more of your wisdom as a guest on the things that I will feature this summer. So that is now our 4th episode of Yelena Talks. I hope you tune in, give me feedback. You can subscribe, like, send me comments. Everything is just so encouraging and helpful. So have a wonderful, beautiful, blessed day. And remember, you are a gem.
Thank you for having me on.